The officials maintain they are working with the local authorities in Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt, and Turkey, and officials have been dispatched to the Libyan border to receive its citizens. As Pakistan joined the long list of countries to evacuate its stranded citizens, there's criticism abound that government is doing too little too late, offering sympathy but little support to some 18,000 Pakistanis still left behind in Libya. Kamal Haider, Al Jazeera, Islamabad.
The flood of people leaving Libya for neighbouring Tunisia does appear to be subsiding somewhat, but the numbers are still posing a challenge for aid agencies at the border. Firas Kyle is the Public Information Officer for the UN's Refugee Agency, UNHCR, and talking from Ras Ajdir, that's on the Tunisian side of the border with Libya, he described the situation in the camp.
We are right now in UNHCR's camp, which is hosting right now between 12 to 15,000 persons. The majority of them are persons from Bangladesh, but there are other nationalities as well. These were the persons who have crossed the border from Libya into Tunisia in the past several days. In the past week, we've had more than 70,000 persons, mainly Egyptians. The total number of people who have crossed the border, by the way, is some 100,000 persons. Around 50,000 Egyptians have been evacuated back to their countries in the past several days. Now here the persons from Bangladesh, it's a bit more difficult with their case because the flights to Bangladesh are 8 hours, not just 2 hours to Egypt. But UNHCR and IOM are right now trying their best to arrange a chartered flight that will take these people back home.
Egyptian state television is now reporting that Nabil El Arabi has been appointed the country's new foreign minister as part of a cabinet reshuffle. He's a former judge at the International Court of Justice and was a permanent representative to the United Nations. He replaces Ahmed Abul-Gheit, who was the country's foreign minister since 2004. Ayman Mohiddin sent us this from Cairo.
Egypt's Prime Minister Issam Sharaf has tapped 75-year-old Nabil El Arabi to be the country's next foreign minister. Nabil El Arabi, a very well-respected figure. He was on the International Court of Justice and a career diplomat here in Egypt, serving in many key posts and, more importantly, as Egypt's permanent representative to the United Nations. He is replacing the outgoing Ahmed Abul-Gheit, and in essence, really, the message that is being delivered to the international community with the appointment of someone that is as seasoned of a diplomat as Nabil El Arabi is that it is a departure from the past. Nabil El Arabi is an individual who was at one point rumored to be replacing the outgoing Secretary General of the League of Arab States. He certainly won't be taking that post now. He will be representing Egypt throughout this interim period and giving it a very international dimension, if you will, in terms of at least the transitions that are going to be taking place domestically. He will have a very busy schedule as he tries to mend some relations between Egypt and the international community, who may be a little bit nervous about this transitional period over the next 6 months. But no doubt he is an individual that is very seasoned, very well respected here in Egypt, and admired internationally.
Coming up in just a moment on this programme, China steps up security in Beijing and Shanghai as groups call for protests similar to those in the Middle East. And getting those geckos will take you on a night hunt in Indonesia.
Hello once again, welcome to another look at the international forecast, and we've seen some very lively weather across the eastern third of the United States. Here's that huge bank of cloud making its way across the eastern seaboard. Dry weather coming back in behind for a time. We have got thicker cloud coming into central parts, and there you go, another area of very wet and wintry weather to come here as we go on through Monday. So there's that snow. It will turn to snow as it pushes its way over the high ground of the Rockies. Temperatures pegged back to 17 Celsius in LA. Plenty of snow into central parts as well. Denver, temperatures falling back to just freezing as a high. And we've got cooler air, but at least it's dry by the time we come to Monday around the eastern seaboard. So 8 degrees there for New York. Notice that wintry weather just clinging on around the Canadian Maritime, so that could cause a few problems. Elsewhere, should be largely dry, and it's largely dry too across the Caribbean. Some lovely sunshine here. Maybe northern parts of Nicaragua pushing into Guatemala could see a few showers, but for most it's set fair. We'll see temperatures getting up to 27, maybe 28 Celsius. Some pleasant weather to come then. Pleasant weather too into central parts of Europe, but topping and tailing that, looking a bit disturbed. It's wet, it's very wintry down into that southeastern corner. More heavy snow to come into Scandinavia and more specifically Norway.
He's taken stolen goods and he's now dumping them onto the world without any sort of consideration for consequences.
From people making the news.
If the North will be saved a lot of trouble, I think it is important that they should come together.
To those it affects.
We do accept that there was very bad mistakes made in our banking area.
Behind the headlines.
Most South Koreans are not interested in reunification.
Is the inside story. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Good to have you with us. A reminder of the main developments in Libya. Rebels continue to battle pro-Gaddafi forces for control of Bin Jawad. They've been bombarding government positions with rocket launchers. In the Libyan capital Tripoli, thousands gathered in support of Muammar Gaddafi, celebrating claims by the government that the rebels have been crushed and that fallen cities have been retaken. Thousands of people were on the streets of Lebanon's capital on Sunday, marching in Beirut and calling for an end to the country's sectarian political system. Protesters argue that the system, which splits the roles of President, Prime Minister and Parliamentary Speaker between a Christian, a Sunni and Shia Muslim, isn't fair. Instead, they want a secular government, they say. In Yemen, at least 40 pro-democracy protesters have been hurt in clashes with government loyalists. Fighting was in a place called Ib, south of the capital Sana'a. Witnesses say they heard gunfire and saw government supporters wielding batons and throwing stones. Well, Yemen's allegedly a hub for al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. The US worried that all of this upheaval across the Arab world could further destabilize Yemen. More from Kimberly Halkett.
As thousands of anti-government protesters continue to rally in Yemen, in Washington, lawmakers meet to discuss what they say is now America's most urgent national security threat.
The ramifications are all going to be very real as we look at the changing nature of what's going on in Yemen, a protected stronghold for al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula.
The al-Qaeda group has been on Washington's radar for some time. It's suspected of waging a campaign to radicalize U.S. citizens, even inspiring Nidal Hassan, the man charged with killing 13 people at a U.S. Army base in Texas. So last month, the Pentagon doubled its military assistance to the Yemen government to fight al-Qaeda. But mounting anti-government protests in Yemen are making Washington nervous about